Well, blessings upon you today. Welcome to our Cornerstone Word for the Week. I'm Pastor Augustus T. Curry, and as always, it's a joy and delight to share with you in the study of the Word. I'm super excited about our word for today. It's Psalm 93. Psalm 93, not particularly a long psalm, just some 5 verses, but certainly an impactful psalm for our consideration on today. We are in the midst of a series dealing with Our God Reigns, Reigns, Our God Reigns. And today we're looking at the ideal of the Lord being majestic. The Lord is, in fact, majestic. This particular psalm, 93, is part of a group of psalms, 7 in total, from Psalm 93 to Psalm 99. They are called the enthroned psalms. They give us a picture, an image of our God as king. As king. It gives us this picture of God through what you call personification and parallelism. Personification and parallelism. When you read through the Psalms, matter of fact, in its entirety, you'll notice those two things are often used throughout what you call Hebrew poetry. Personification. It takes something that you and I and the intended listener would be familiar with from an individual, from a human perspective, and gives that attributes and trying to give us a picture, a description of one of the attributes of our God. Uses parallelism and that it takes, again, something we are familiar with and then applies it to our God to help us see God in a better light. And so personification and parallelism. And one of the ways it does that, as we will see in Psalm 93, is to take an image of that which is considered to be royalty, that it gives us a picture of that which, in an iconic way, meant to give us another way of looking and appreciating our God. We certainly have been familiar with God as a shepherd. We know that from the 23rd Psalms. We see iconic images of a person holding a sheep in their arms. That's meant to be an iconic picture of the way the Lord is our shepherd. Even in our world today, we see pictures and images that are intended to make us see something or someone in a particular way that we perhaps had not seen them before, and to bring to our remembrance that thing or that individual. Think about if you wanted to give the ideal of something very royal, you might see, someone might show you a picture of a crown, a royal robe. If you wanted to give someone the ideal of danger ahead, you might show them a traffic sign with some type of warning on it. If you want to give an impression of something dealing in the genre of music, pop music, you might show a picture of Michael Jackson. Matter of fact, he himself would try to give iconic images so that you would think of him, associate him with the king of pop. And so often he would even wear a crown himself or dress himself in such a way that he looked like royalty. Even the color of robes of kings and queens was meant to inspire a particular feeling toward them. So very often they would wear royal purple. They would build great palaces so that people would feel, when they thought of them, a sense of protection and hold them in a particular light of high esteem. Such was the case today, such is the case back at the time of the text. And so we see the writer of Psalm 93 through personification and parallelism, giving us symbols and ideals that we are familiar with in terms of what we consider to be associated with royalty and majesty, and applies it through parallelism. Parallelism places it side by side, something we're familiar with, to give us a picture of that which we are not familiar with, to become more familiar with it, of our God. And so Psalm 93 begins with, we'll be looking at the Living Bible translation today, as well as the King James Version today. The King James Version begins chapter 93 with, "The Lord reigneth." The Lord reigneth. That word reigneth, it gives the ideal, the impression. It literally means, in fact, kingdom, kingship. The Lord reigneth. He is king, and he exercises his kingship in all of that is under him. The Lord reigneth. We may have other kings and queens here on planet Earth, but there's one true reigning king over all. Psalmist wants us to know it's the Lord, just as we might have governors and princes, queens, princesses, presidents, and the like. They might have authority and the like, but it's only up to a certain point. There is a God who sits high. There is a God who reigns over it all. He cannot be impeached. He cannot be put out. You cannot even steal an election and vote him out. He reigns over all. The psalmist says here, he is clothed with some things, not merely a royal robe that can wear out, not merely a real nice crown that can lose its gems, but he's clothed with some majesty, the psalmist says. And then it says he's clothed also with some strength. Yeah, the Lord reigneth. He is clothed with majesty. The Lord is clothed with strength. It says, wherewith he hath girded himself. To be girded means to have a belt placed around you. And when you think of the ideal of a king or a queen being girded, it's the ideal of them having on a royal robe, but a belt being tied around it. It would often give them mobility, particularly if there were potential adversaries coming in the area. If they were girded, there was no possibility of them tripping over the rope. They would be able to quickly move, respond, react, handle the business of whatever was coming up against them or their people. The psalmist says he reigns, he's clothed with majesty, he's clothed with strength. It gives the impression that if you are with him, Lord help me, and part of his kingship, whatever not only comes up against him, but comes up against you, he's able to handle it because he's already girded, and he girded himself. There's none beside him. And then the second part of that first verse says, not only is he clothed with majesty and clothed with strength, and not only wherewith he hath girded himself, but it says the world also is established, that it cannot be moved. The Living Bible translation puts it this way: Jehovah is king. He is robed in majesty and strength. The world is his throne. The world is his throne. The world is established, and it's established by him. It is not subject to being dismantled and to anything else happening to it without it first going through him. He wouldn't create something that could outdo him. Everything is under his rule, is under his authority, and it ought to operate within his will. But because he gives humanity a free will to do some things, we see things happening in the world that are under God, but not necessarily of God. But the world itself, no matter how negligent humanity might be, the global warming and the like, wars, and all of that, it ultimately is still under God's rule and God's authority. It has been established. The psalmist says that it cannot be moved. Verse 2 says, "Thy throne is established of old, thou art from everlasting," meaning there's nothing new to it. Doesn't matter how far you go back, God has always been right there. It's interesting that when you look at the world and kings and queens and monarchs, rulers over time, they always like to place the jurisdiction, the geographical area where they are, in the center of the maps they produce. Even globes today produced by certain European countries will always picture the continent of Africa on the globe smaller than what it actually is, and their province larger than what it actually is. They want to make themselves the center. It's been going on a long time, and so even way back then, they would place wherever they are in the center of the map. The psalmist is saying here, God created the world. His throne has been established from old. He is, it says, from everlasting. He is the centerpiece of time and of space in the world. He created it all. He is, his throne is the symbol of his authority. And so again, the psalmist is trying to give us iconic pictures we might be familiar with to better familiarize ourselves with God and his wonderful attributes. Not only that, but then verse 3 says, "The floods have lifted up, O Lord, the floods have lifted up their voice. The floods lift up their waves." What is the psalmist speaking of here, talking about these floods? Well, the area in which this song was composed was what you call an arid place. The atmosphere was what you call arid. By that, it would rain between maybe November and February, but then between March and October, no rain, very dry. And so the land would be hard. And then when the rains came, it would produce flooding, because the ground was so hard and the air was so arid, the ground could not soak up the rain that came. And so it was like concrete. The water would just rush over it. And so subsequently, the streams, the creeks would overflow and overrun and wipe things away. And so it could be very disheartening and frightening to the people. And so the psalmist, through personification, he puts voice to the floods. He puts voice and feet to the floods. He says again in verse 3, "The floods have lifted up. O Lord, the floods have lifted up their voice." the floods lift up their waves. And the parallelism is floods to things that can come up against you. And so perhaps verse 4 will help you see that. And so he says here to address that, the Lord on high is mightier than the noise of many waters, yea, than the mighty waves of the sea, meaning that anything that can rise up against you, anything that can throw shade at you, lift its voice against you, the psalmist says God is mightier than whatever that can be produced by that. He said the Lord on high is mightier than the noise your enemies and your distractors are making against you. The Lord on high is mightier than the noise of many waters, yea, than the mighty waves of the sea. The Living Bible translation puts it this way: O Lord, you have reigned from prehistoric times, from the everlasting past. The mighty oceans thunder your praise. You are mightier than all the breakers pounding on the seashores of the world. Your royal decrees cannot be changed. Holiness is forever the keynote of your reign. Let me give it to you, the King James Version, that verse 5, it says, thy testimonies are very sure. Holiness becomes thine house, O Lord, forever. And so no matter what comes up against you, cannot come up against you without it first going through our God. He reigns. He supersedes any floods that can mount up against you. Anything that can happen to you can't happen to you unless it goes through him. Why does it have to go through him? Because it has to be conformed for you. Yeah. And so nothing happens to his children without it first going through him. And that is the opportunity for you to see how he can conform it to not just happen to you, but really happen for you. For we know all things work together for good, for those who love God, for those who are the called according to him. And so everything that happens to you is under God's reign. He still, as I said earlier, sits on high. And now he also looks low. And he's always looking out on our behalf. He reigns. He reigns. He rules. He has authority. There's nothing you can possibly face that's in his creation that is too hard for the Creator to put under his feet. That's again personification, as if God has feet. We are created in his image and in his likeness. However, the only true likeness of God the Father is through God the Son, and that's in the man, Jesus Christ. Christ became like us through Christ, that we might become more and more like him. He reigns. Thank God for his word. I'm super excited about our study next week. We'll look at the ideal of the Lord being active. We don't just have this iconic picture of God, but we also have a running film of him, if you will. We have evidence of his activity in our lives and in our world. And so read Psalm 103, verses 1 through 14 for next week. The Lord is active. He's engaged. He didn't just create the world and put it on a timer and lets it run by itself and steps away. No, he's not only active, but he's interactive in all that you and I go through. And so check it out, Psalm 103, verses 1 through 14. May the Lord bless you and keep you real good. Please be safe if you are out there driving. And we look forward to seeing you, hopefully in person, here at Cornerstone, 640 Ebenezer Church Road, Fayetteville, Georgia, Sunday morning, 9 a.m. However, if the weather is inclement, then we'll see you online. God bless you and God keep you till next time. Blessings.